So it's been rumored that the final 2025 set of Flesh and Blood will be another Light Shadow set, a return to the Monarch storyline. And whether that ends up being true or not, it does have my creative juices flowing in terms of what it could mean for Light Warrior. Because after 4 years since the mechanic debuted, we can be pretty confident in saying that charging as it exists today isn't good. And thus, as excited as I am to see the next iteration of Light Warrior, I can't help but wonder if Light Warrior isn't actually inherently constrained by its core mechanic. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends, and welcome back to the channel. So I'm very much looking forward to the next iteration of the Monarch series, especially because it will be returning with a draftable set. The previous return to the story arc, Dusk Till Dawn, did contain new heroes, but they were both functional backfills for LL talented heroes, returning Light Illusionist and Shadow Runeblade cards to playability. And sure, while Boltyn and Levia did pick up some significant cards, let's be honest, it didn't change a whole lot overall for either one of them. And that's why returning to Monarch with a draftable set is extremely exciting. The prospect, maybe, of a new Light Warrior with a different spin on the Light Warrior playstyle would be very welcome. Now, you all know me, I love Dorinthea, and in earlier years, I'd always thought it would be super cool to have her as a light hero. However, as years have gone on, and especially since Dusk Till Dawn's release and how it hardly moved the needle at all for Boltyn, I've actually come to the conclusion that I don't want a Light Warrior Dorinthea, at least not yet, and instead I'd prefer a new Boltyn or a completely new hero altogether. Why? To be blunt, my friends, I don't want our next iteration of Dorinthea to suck. And the fear of having her be a Light Warrior right now would be that she would in all likelihood be associated in some way with the soul mechanic. It is, after all, a core mechanic of the Light talent. The charge and soul mechanics, as well as, of course, an affinity for yellow pitch cards, are central to the identity of Boltyn, and this creates both unique play patterns and design constraints for future sets. Light Warrior has abilities and powerful cards that either activate or gain additional benefits for charging on that turn. Charging, of course, involves putting a card from your hand into your hero's soul as an additional cost. And while the effects can be powerful, this means that you are essentially using more cards, pitching, playing, and charging, in order to earn those effects. Charging a card into soul from hand is a form of card disadvantage on the immediate turn. This inherently makes the class very card hungry, and especially susceptible to disruption, and even just blocking often becomes its own penalty. Additionally, Light Warrior lines of play often involve this repetitive core loop of charging and then expending soul for powerful go-again attacks. This makes it easier for skilled opponents to predict these plays, and allows them to allocate blocks more efficiently, thus constraining Light Warrior's ability to push through damage. This has certainly presented a unique design challenge for LSS thus far, one which they have played pretty close to the chest and conservatively to date. Part of the challenge around the soul mechanic is how potentially strong it is as a storage mechanic. Even with the cards we have today, it's very easy to see the danger of soul accumulation with a card like Beacon of Victory. So it's really quite understandable as to why LSS has been incredibly conservative to their design approach on all things Light Warrior. After all, as famously said, it's easy to make a broken card. If charging becomes too efficient, or if soul building becomes overly easy, Boltyn could go from 0 to hero very quickly, which, ironically, thanks to the new LL points multiplier, wouldn't be as long of a reign as it could have been. Even with the tools available today, there's no denying that Light Warrior can achieve very powerful turns when all of the pieces come together. So I do appreciate the conservative design approach, but it doesn't change the fact that, as it exists today, the need to manage your soul and consistently charge cards to enable even baseline play, coupled with a reliance on specific card synergies, does create a set of constraints that limits Light Warrior's gameplay. But Andrew, they could just do something else for the next Light Warrior. Well, sure, but also no, in a way. See, when it comes to talents, LSS has shown a willingness to both evolve and rebrand mechanics, but they do so within the context of those mechanics. Ironically, or perhaps appropriately, your call, we saw such an evolution in the Shadow Runeblade mechanic of play from Banished. With Vincent and Dusk Till Dawn came Runegate, a slightly different play on the mechanics employed and often abused by Chane. But, as we're all very aware, Chane has now been able to incorporate this new spin on the mechanic into his existing strategies, becoming a pretty massive threat in both of the evergreen formats, Living Legend and Commoner alike. So whereas Chane was gone from the Classic Constructed format, paving the way for something new, Boltyn still remains. That original constraint still remains in Classic Constructed. Now look, I'm not claiming that Boltyn could ever be as strong given how susceptible he is to disruption, but the problem statement stands. While LSS can certainly introduce new mechanics that interact with Charge and Soul in different ways, they aren't working from a blank slate, and thus LSS has to be very careful with how they print new Light Warrior cards. Too strong of effects, too easy go again, or Soul Generation could make Light Warrior easily overwhelming, but being conservative can make the constraints way too punishing, and this is a very tough tightrope to walk. And as we've very clearly seen, LSS has historically skewed very conservative on this particular case. Again, can you remind me why these cards weren't either 4s or yellow? And sure, while we've seen many variations on base mechanics over the years, we have yet to see a complete rewrite, especially when it comes to talents. Light Warrior will, in all likelihood, always be tied to the Soul mechanic in some form. And on the flip side, if it isn't, all your cards become significantly less useful, which would also be a huge bummer. All those gorgeous, shiny Light Warrior cards that we've been collecting and saving for 4 years, well, now all of a sudden, we want the mechanic to stay, but just creep. And that is probably not in the cards. So all in all, I am really looking forward to see what LSS chooses to do with the future of the Light Warrior archetypes. The key will be finding ways to add depth and variety without either escalating the power of existing strategies or completely sidelining them. So it's going to be interesting times ahead. Let me know your thoughts, and go Commando.